well guided in our discussion, inshallah. I will start by explaining a little bit, very briefly, about my book. Actually, it's a very small and very thin book. By the names of Tujuh Prinsip Pembangunan Masyarakat Islam. It is in Malay, and in English it is 7 Principles of Science-Based Development. And alhamdulillah, now at the moment, the English translations of the book is in progress now, and hopefully that in a short time, inshallah, in the near future, we'll have an e-book in English, inshallah. So actually, the printed version was published in 2003, and the revised e-book was published at Indie at USM in 2022, last year. In this book, I discuss about 7 principles: the modes, the actors, the time scale, framework, methodology, means, and ultimate aims of the Islamic-based development. I think these 7 principles encompass everything that we need in the development, and I think it's very important for all of us to know about this, because it is not only for Islamic-based development, but also for in all disciplines, in all fields. We can always use these 7 principles, inshallah, and especially in halal, of course, we have to have the frameworks of the halal theories and all that, so that we can have all the modes of the halal, the actors, time scale, framework, methodology, means, and ultimate aim, inshallah. So the 7 principles are not confined to Islamic-based development per se, and I think this is applicable to all fields of academic discipline, inshallah. Even though this book is a very thin book, very small books, but alhamdulillah, I was surprised to observe that it has been expanded and also researched by many students, especially our student at ISTEF, USM, and at least 4 principles, 4 principles of the 7 principles have been researched very deeply by 4 PhD students at our university. And so, for instance, Dr. Shukri Muhammad Hanafi has researched into the modes, and especially on Tasawwur Islamic development, Islamic-based development. Dr. Sheriza Muhammad Sanif research on the actors of the Islamic-based development. Dr. Roda has researched on the means of the Islamic development-based development, and also Dr. Arifin has done quite an interesting research on the ultimate end of Islamic-based development. But apart from that, there are a lot of theses on the thesis at PhD and also at master's level that was based on this book to expand the discussions on various aspects of the principles, either theoretically or empirically. So all of you are invited, if you are interested to get to know more into these principles, then you are invited to ISTEF, inshallah. We have all the theses, and some of them have been published, inshallah. All right, this is the brief explanation of the book. As for the first chapter, I think we need to discuss about the conventional development theories, because I think it's unfair for us to go straight into the principles of Islamic-based development without knowing the conventional development theories. So that's why on the first, in the first chapter, I committed myself to discuss, and inshallah we will discuss briefly on the conventional development theory, inshallah. Yeah, let's start. When I talk about the conventional development theories, actually, I'm referring to the theories, the development theories that have been established and emerged after 1945, after the Second World War. We observe that after the Second World War, the Western countries, especially the Western Europes and the people over there will try to find a development theory, try to develop themselves to redevelop the destroyed states, their states, to destroy to redevelop their destroyed states due to the Second World War. So we can see from there emerge few theories, and after that it has been expanded to various theories until now, alhamdulillah. So we can say that roughly that the conventional development theories has been emerged or established in Western Europe, and then that's why we refer the theories, the conventional development theories, as Western ethnocentric or Eurocentric, because they establish the theories based on their experience, the Western countries' experience. Yeah. So initially, the concept of Western ethnocentric or Eurocentric is confined to those people, to those development theorists that resided in the Western Europe. But then later on, the minds or the ideology of the Western ethnocentric development theories have been spread to all over the world, and therefore it is not based on the regional space as such. And we can always say that there are Western ethnocentric or Eurocentric theories, development theories in Malaysia, for instance, even though they are Malaysians or Indians or whoever they are, as far as they commit or adopts the Western ethnocentric or Eurocentric development thinking, so we consider them as the Western ethnocentric or Eurocentric development theorist. Yeah, this very briefly about the and then we can say, we can observe that actually all the development theories have been emerged from within just two philosophies, which we can call the neoclassical philosophy, and the second one is the radical philosophy. So these are the two dominant philosophies that has produced a few theories. Yes. So, for instance, from within the development philosophies paradigms, there emerged what we call the growth theory development theories, and then later on the redistribution with growth theories. While on the radical philosophies, from within the radical philosophies framework, we can observe that there emerged what we can call the structuralist theory, and the other one is the dependency theory. So these are the two dominant philosophies that created the development stories. The development stories that we are discussing and also learning in our development studies at the moment. Yeah, but apart from that, I observe it is not really neoclassical and radical. Towards the end of 1970s, we can observe that there are a mixture of neoclassical and radical philosophies, which, for instance, have produced and deal with basic needs theories, especially by international level organization in 1976. And later on, which is now popular, very popular at the moment, is the sustainable development theories, introduced by United Nations also, especially through the Brundtland report in 1987. And now it has been enhanced and expanded into the latest strategy, which we come to know by the names of Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, Sustainable Development Goals. So we can see that actually, roughly, yeah, basically, all the development theories, all development stories came up from within the three kinds of philosophies: the neoclassical philosophy, the radical philosophy, and the other one is the mixture of the neoclassical and radical philosophies. Yeah, the neoclassical philosophies. The neoclassical philosophies created the growth theory with growth theory, which later on entailed with capitalism, were radical through structuralist theory and dependency theories, entail with what we came to know as socialisms or communism. While neoclassical and radical philosophies, the theories within the neoclassical and radical philosophies, we can hardly observe any ideological links to any neoclassical or radical. It is much more of a neutral, but then definitely it is still dominated by the neoclassical as it is introduced by United Nations. Yeah, by United Nations, we know that United Nations has been dominated by the Western countries, and therefore I think neoclassical is much more dominant than the radical theory in that basic needs theory and sustainable development theory. Right? Let we see a little bit in detail about these theories. Let's go to the growth theory. Growth theory started with the assumptions that the scarcity of resources and unlimited ones. They are saying resources are scarce and limited, while the humans' wants are unlimited. So therefore, they accept the fact that the resources are scarce, because as we consume the resources, the more we consume, the less it is available. While our wants, our desire, are unlimited, and it is always developing, and we want a lot of things from time to time. So basically, growth theory wanted to find a way how to fulfill the unlimited wants of human beings within the constraints of the scarcity of resources. And then apart from that, they also assumes that human desire and unlimited wants leads to the pursuits of profit, and it is good for them because the human desires and unlimited wants will lead to the increasing productivity and economic growth, and also eventually will lead to the increase of the gross domestic product per person. And they hope that by that, there will be a trickle-down effect on all society. So beginning probably from the those who are having high desires, with high unlimited wants, and pursue for profit, and therefore they have to work more to produce more, and eventually will lead to economic growth. And at the national level, we can measure it by gross domestic product per person. And by that, they hope that the trickle-down effect will also go to those who are not having the much human desire, especially to the poor. The mechanism is self-regulated. It's a much more of a free market. The market is self-regulated in response to the supply and demand. And there's also free competition. Competitors with the smart strategies will be allowed to fulfill their aims to get more profit, and hopefully at the end the trickle-down effect will happen. So the actors' behavior for them is consumer make a rational decision to maximize utility, and the aims to maximize profit, and the people are acting independently based on all the information they have. So they have the choice or action, and factors of production in order to produce something. So they need the labor, the land, capital, entrepreneurship, and sekarang ini on technology. So the measurement, whether growth is happening or not. So definitely it's the productivity. The high the productivity, the high is the growth, and the per capita income. So it's the purchasing power. By having much per capita income, people are having high purchasing power, and therefore we can measure that by GDP, gross domestic product, where we can measure the consumer spending and business investment, and also government spending and net exports. So this is basically the growth theory. We can always discuss that in detail at the stages of growth theory by Rostow and many more. But for us, I think it's enough for us to get to know the very brief background of the theory. But then later on, they found out that growth theory, yes, it is successful to lead to the growth. But then there is also problems with the growth theory, because a trickle-down effect did not happen. Yeah, and because of that, we can see that there are increasing of the inequalities, and therefore, from within the neoclassical paradigms, philosophies, there emerged another theory by the name of redistribution with growth theory. So the people who are advocating that, the redistribution with growth theory, they believe in growth. They believe that growth must be endeavored, but at the same time, we make to make sure that the growth has to be redistributed equally, so that trickle-down effect will happen, and also the poor can get their share, and there decrease the inequality within the society. But one unique, interesting methodology that they're using, they are actually redistributing the incremental wealth, not the factors of production. Meaning that those people who are having land, capital, and whatever that can be considered as factors of production, they remains as their owner. Yeah, and their hearts, their ownerships. But what they want to distribute is the wealth, the profit, the incremental profit from the usage of the factors of production. Yeah, and this is the has been criticized by the people, by the development theorists within the radical philosophies. Yeah, they are saying if you want to redistribute and reduce inequality, so we need not to redistribute only the incremental wealth, but also the factors of productions. Meaning that we need to redistribute the land, we need to redistribute the capital, the entrepreneurship, and so forth, and so forth. So by doing that, and then we can see there emerge two kinds of theories within the radical philosophies. Number one is the structuralist theory. Yeah, structuralist theory emerged in response to the failure of the growth theory. As I've said just now, trickle-down effect did not happen. Inequality increased. The poor becomes poorer. The richer becomes richer. And therefore, the structuralist theory was saying that we need not only to distribute the incremental wealth, but also the means of production. We can realize that in the neoclassical philosophy, they use the words factors of productions or the inputs of production. While in the radical philosophy, they use means of production. Yeah? Macam tadi land, capital, entrepreneurship, technology. For neoclassical theories, they are saying they use the concept of factors of production or input of production, while in the radical philosophies, they use the concept of means of production. Bendanya sama saja ya, benda sama saja. So success story seeks to explain why some regions lag behind in terms of the per capita income, why this lag is accompanied by sharp inequalities in distribution, both within the lagging region and also within the countries. So they come up with the reasons actually it is lagging, it is failed because of the exploitative commodities extractions by the developed countries. You see, the undeveloped countries produce a lot of commodities and they exported it. The developed country extracted it and then exported it, and then they processed and then sent back to the poor countries to be consumed as a final consumer product. So the commodities has been exported, processed in the developed countries, and then sent back to the poor countries to be consumed by the people over there with a high price. So structurally story come with a solution of what they call import substitution. So instead of exporting the commodities macam apa ni getah, palm oil and all that, and then they process the commodities locally in the undeveloped countries, so that exploitative commodities extraction did not happen, and then they process the commodities at home, produce the final consumer products, and then sell to the people with a lower price. But later on, the structure study has been criticized because the technology, the experts to process the commodities are also imported from the developed countries. They are not really independent. And therefore, from within the radical philosophy themselves, there emerged a group of development theories introducing what they call a dependency theories, because they assume the structural studies is not radical enough and unable to entail with revolution. It is not a total revolution. And they start to introduce dependency theory, start to introduce discourses at the center versus periphery. So they explain that actually the extractions of the surplus commodities happens not only from undeveloped countries to developed countries, but also it happens within the undeveloped country itself, the poor country itself. So, say for instance, the center is the Kuala Lumpur, for instance, but they have the peripheries, the other capital of other states like Kota Baru, Kuantan, Ipoh, and these are the peripheries. And apart from that, lower from that, Ipoh within the Perak, for instance, is the center of the country, but then below there are a lot of other peripheries, and the districts are peripheries, and the district will also considered as center, and then below the districts there are also mukim dan sebagainya, it is considered periphery. So actually the extractions of the commodities and surplus happens from the very beginning at the lowest level of a state to the country, and then the country is, for instance, in Kuala Lumpur is considered as center from within Malaysia, but then it is considered as periphery at the global level. So the center is London, New York, yeah, the upper hierarchy of the economy. So the extraction also happened, and then we can see that dependency theory tried to expand the explanation of not only having the exploitative commodities extraction from poor country to the developed country, but also it happens within the poor country itself. Yeah. So the solution is very radical. Dependency theories were saying that in order to develop yourself, you need to detach yourself, yeah, from the centers. You have to develop yourself independently from the centers, which is quite impossible, and until now, it does not happen as yet. Yeah, but then one thing we can recognize, we can realize that the radical philosophies, the theories of the radical philosophies have led to the emergence of socialism and also communism. Yeah, as we know, many countries adopts this kind of system, right? But then later on, we observe that they emerge kind of a more neutral theories, which is not really based on ideologies, rather neoclassical or radical ideologies or philosophies, but it is more neutral in the sense that they want to fulfill anything without based their suggestions on any particular ideologies, as compared to the previous radical and also the neoclassical development strategies. Yeah. So the first thing, I think the two dominant theory that have been developed from that kind of more flexible ideologies and systems is a basic needs theory, introduced by International Labour Organization in 1976. They started to realize that actually the poor is poor because they do not have anything to fulfill their basic needs. They do not have much food to fulfill their life, and also the clothes, accommodation, education, health, transport, public facilities. And in fact, people like Alicia's, for instance, she was saying that development cannot happen until we eliminate poverty, yeah, we eliminate inequality, and we eliminate unemployment. And through eliminations of poverty, inequality, and unemployment, then we are able to fulfill the basic needs of the people at all levels. This is basically the basic needs theory. But then later on, which is much popular until now, is the sustainable development theory. As I have said, it was introduced by UN Brundtland Report in 1987. And then we observed that later on it has been developed into sustainable development goals to be realized from 2015 to be endeavored from 2015 and to be realized fully, inshallah, in 2030. They have 17 goals. I'm sure that all of you know about this. Yeah, no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being quality until the partnerships for the goals. Yeah, but then I came to understand that IIUM has introduced has added another goals. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it's a spirituality, isn't it? Yeah, spirituality goals, because dalam 17 goals ni, they do not have that the spirituality aspects. All right, so basically what is meant by sustainable development is by UN is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So we cannot consume for ourselves per se, but then we have to also reserve for our future generations so that they can also meet their needs. So we can see that the components of the sustainable development is the human sustainability, to maintain and improve the human capital in society, and then the social sustainability, the economic sustainability, and lastly is the environmental sustainability. So if you can conclude, probably inshallah we can conclude by saying that we can see the dominant development theories have been emerged from within three kinds of development philosophies. The first one is neoclassical philosophy, which produce the growth and redistribution with growth theory. which led to the establishment of the capitalism, and then later on the radical philosophies, which produced the structuralist theory and also the dependency theory, and until with a system by the name of socialism and communism. And then later on, we observe that there are also the mixture of the ideologies and systems, the neoclassical and the radical, as we have seen in China, in Vietnam. Yeah, and they were more tolerant with capitalism, and in fact invited capitalism into themselves, and they found that they can develop more as opposed to the previous radical philosophy per se. So we can see there emerge the basic needs theory and also the sustainable development theory. Okay, so this is the conventional development theories. From my perspective, from what I've learned, but we can also see there are also people who try to categorize the conventional development theories into another way. For instance, there are people who also categorize development theories into three. The first one is what they call modernization theory. Number two is the dependency theory. Number three is the world development theory. Actually, this is quite the same, because modernization theory is actually also then emerged from neoclassical philosophies, which refer to growth and also redistribution with growth theories. Only the term is used as modernization. All right, dependency theory from within the radical theory. They ignore the structuralist theory, so they go straight to the dependency theory. And the other one is the world system theory, which also discuss about the center and peripheries, which I think also can be included into the radical philosophies. What they have not discussed is about the mixed ideologies and systems that has been produced basic needs theory and sustainable development theory. So I think that's all that I want to say today, inshallah, as a basic. And next one will be criticizing these stories from the Islamic perspective, inshallah, before we embark into the 7 principles of Islamic-based development. Thank you very much, Dr. Noor Yuslida. Back to you.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Prof, for the sharing and presentation just now. Without further ado, brothers and sisters, we have now come to the question and answer session. So do we have any questions that you would like to ask Prof directly? You may unmute yourself, or in fact, if there's any questions written down in the chat box, we may check that out. Any questions from the audience? It is not usual that we can get this opportunity to have Prof to spend his precious time with us. So I think if we have any questions ourselves, who else is the best to answer our questions other than the man himself here? Any questions from the mind of our audience here for today? Perhaps you are thinking over the coffee, or maybe you are still fasting today, waiting for the coming of 1 month more that we are facing for Ramadan. Today is already 24th of Sha'ban. Perhaps if there is no questions, Prof, I have some personal questions regarding these development theories here, Prof. Now that we have our SDGs, and it is aimed for us to achieve, if it's not all for everything, by 2030. Do you think that we can achieve it? And if we can, or if we cannot, what else after 2030, Prof?
Yeah, I think they're working very, very hard to achieve the SDGs. And Alhamdulillah, I think IUM is one of the active party which try to endeavor that we probably a little bit of modification. I'm not too sure whether it will achieve by 2030, but 70 goals seems to be quite hard. But even though if they achieve it, I can see that from within our Muslim intellectuals, there'll be a confusion. There'll be a confusion of what is SDGs, because many see the SDGs from the operational level of it. Say, for instance, the first one, no poverty. So they are saying no poverty is not against Islam, and therefore it is good for Islam, and we have to work hard to elevate, to eliminate poverty. So is the food, yeah, and the others accept the LGBT lah, accept the gender issues. So they are saying that, oh, SDG is good, and that's why we can see at the moment there are a lot of people who start to integrate the SDGs with the Maqasid Sharia, SDGs with zakat, and try to think how zakat, wakaf can facilitate the implementations of SDGs and all that. I think which is quite incorrect or quite dangerous, in fact, from my because if you were to believe that SDGs is not against Islam, it's not contradictory to Islam, but we need to also observe at the philosophical level of the SDGs. And then when we go into the philosophical level of the SDGs, then we need to redefine what is the meaning of poverty from Islamic perspective. What is the meaning of health from Islamic perspective? Yeah. What is the meaning of food from Islamic perspective? And we have to redefine all that, and then we can say that actually the SDGs is good for Islam. It's good for Islam. So I'm not too sure about that. We can always say, for instance, what the 70 goals of the SDGs are good, except the gender issue, and then it can be the outlines or the framework for our development. But then we want to use that SDGs with the framework. We have to redefine it from Islamic perspective, and then we have to come up with what probably we can call an Islamic Sustainable Development Goals, yeah, with that kind of redefinition, inshallah. So, but I think now they are talking not talking about SDGs anymore. They're talking about ESG, yeah, ESG, economic, social, and governance. So I think after 2030, they will be concentrating on the ESG instead of SDG. SDG, inshallah. Yeah. One thing that I observe, our intellectuals, yeah, especially the Muslim intellectual, many of us, whenever there comes a concept, we get obsessed with the concepts and try to feel the concept without doing any critical analysis of the concept. And so, for instance, when SDGs come up, we just accept it as it is, as given, and we try to think how to fulfill the SDGs. Also, Maqasid Sharia. When Maqasid Sharia concept is popular, so everybody and many of us try to relate Maqasid Sharia to all aspects of our disciplines, without criticizing or analyzing what is actually the Maqasid Sharia. And so is in Malaysia, for instance, dulu ada Islam Hadari. We accept it without any criticisms, without any criticisms. and then we accept and try to think how to fulfill ini. And at the moment, we can see also the concept Malaysia Madani. Also, everybody is talking about that and try to fulfill without analyzing and understanding what is this actually Malaysia Madani. Thank you, Dr. Yuslida.
Thank you, Prof. We also have another related question there in our chat box by Sister Siti Nadia Muhammad Ali. So she is asking this question, Prof, how should the pattern of Madani society be guided by the Islamic system without being invaded?
Can you please repeat again?
How should the pattern of Madani society be guided by the Islamic system without being invaded?
Without being invaded by whom?
Sister Siti Nadia, would you furnish us more detail in the chat box? Prof is asking some clarifications here from us. What do you mean by the invaders?
The ruler, invaded by the ruler, is it?
I see, by the ruler, yes.
Malaysian ruler? The Sultan, the king? or the political figures?
I guess in general, yeah, Prof? Yes.
In general, yeah?
Yeah, in general.
Well, okay. There are a few things that probably we can discuss. The first thing is who initiated the Malaysia Madani? And definitely it is a political leader, right? Political leader. And it's quite interesting to observe and to compare with the previous Islamic initiative. We know that during Dr. Mahathir, he introduced what they call a penerapan Islam inculcations of the nilai-nilai Islam, nilai-nilai murni, yeah. Okay, the good values. And then later on, during the Tun Abdullah Ahmad Badawi, he introduced Islam Khadari. Then after that, we came to know about Maqasid Syariah Wasatiyah and also Malaysian Sharia Index by Dato' Najib. Then later on, we can also observe the emergence of Rahmatan lil Alamin, introduced during the PH ruling, especially introduced by the Minister of the Religious Affairs, Dr. Mujahid. And then later on, when the government changed, we were introduced by Manhaj Rabbani. Yeah. And then after that, we were Piagam 19. Yeah, Piagam 19. And then lately, we have been introduced with Malaysian Madani. So you can see that it's kind of tradition for all political leaders to introduce the tagline. But I'm sure that all of the initiatives are good, and they are thinking for the goods of the people of Malaysia, alhamdulillah. And for Madani, it's quite interesting because it's quite unique in the sense that number one is a concept. If you read the Madani book in Malay, written by our Prime Minister, they use the concept Madani. But then if we read the books in English, and Madani is not used anymore. So they use the terms script, S-C-R-I-P-T, script, yeah? So the first question is that, is Madani, the concept of Madani, really significant in the Malaysia Madani idea? Why they do not use the concept of Madani itself also in the English book of Madani? That's one. I'm sure that they have the reason. Alhamdulillah, we at ISTEF are now trying to understand it, and a few of my colleagues are studying about it and try to understand it. And we'll later on we'll come whether it is actually Islamic or not. Yeah. Number two, usually a concept, the acronyms used. Usually we use the first letter of the words. Kalau Madani, for instance, M, what is M? A, what is A? D, what is D? And so on and so forth. But then in Madani, they actually do not take the first letter of the words, the sentence, but it is more choosing, for instance, in the first at the aims, and then we try to find, is there any letter by the letter M, for instance, irrespective whether where it is located, whether as the first letter, the last letter, or the letter in the middle. So we're not sure about that, why it is so. And then number 3, it is quite interesting also. Usually, we can see kalau penerapan nilai Islam, Islam Hadari, Index Malaysia, Syariah Malaysia, and then we can see that they came from the Prime Minister themselves. Later on, Rahmatan lil Alamin, Manhaj Rabbani, and also the Piagam 19. They came from the Minister of Religious Affairs. But then all of them are based on JAKIM. Mana JAKIM has been given the task to pursue it, to implement it, and to monitor whatever that they can monitor. But then for Masyarakat Madani, it's not JAKIM who organized, who introduced, who initiated the Malaysia Madani. Rather, it is from IDE, Institute Darul Ihsan, which is the think tank, I think of Selangor State think tank, I think, based in UNICEL, based in UNICEL. So it is not at JAKIM, but it is rather IDE is much more active in that. And JAKIM, the Minister of Religious Affairs, seemed to introduce Al-Falah strategy to fulfill the implementations of Masyarakat Madani. But the main player is IDE rather than JAKIM. So this is quite interesting to research on and to understand. We at SF has not met with the people that developed the Masyarakat Madani as yet. We intend to do so to understand. And at the moment, we are rather neutral. We know that it is good for the people of Malaysia, but we want to know the details of it. And eventually, we want to know whether they are based on Islamic development strategies or otherwise. We can see during the discussions or in the discussions of the Masyarakat Madani, there are two camps who were saying, the first camp was saying that Masyarakat Madani is actually Islamic civilizational strategy, taken from the traditional thinking, the ideologies of the great scholars, the previous scholars. But at the same time, we did the same groups of people who are also thinking that Masyarakat Madani is actually trying to establish a civil society. So we wonder whether which one is true, Islamic civilization society or civil society. And people are saying that if we tend to establish an Islamic civil society, we need to redefine it again, to see it again, to understand it, what it is actually. Because if you see the civil society from conventional perspective, it is quite different from Islamic perspective. It's just not in it. So ini banyak lah. I think it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting to get to know more about this. Hopefully that this government will last long, and then so that we researchers can have much time to study about it. Kalau dulu rahmatan alamin, we try to study, but then later on stop when the PH government fall down after 22 months. So studying within 22 months to understand it tak sempat. And hopefully that for masyarakat Mandani, we have the opportunity, we had the time to study, to understand. And in fact, if it is really good, inshallah, we need to help them to implement whatever is good for the people of Malaysia, inshallah, and for the Ummah. Right, Dr. Yuslida, Nurul Yuslida.
Thank you very much, Prof. MashaAllah, it's indeed a lifelong learning, yeah, Prof. So I guess, Prof, I think I would like to ask for your advice. What is your advice, Prof, to the young lecturers and researchers in coming out or in researching of a concept? Like, for example, is it okay for us to merge few conventional ideas and saying that that is, Islamic based, or do we need to come up with a new concept altogether, Prof?
Yeah, it's quite interesting and very important question. Alhamdulillah, you can see the efforts to Islamize the knowledge. Yeah, I think we can salute IIUM for this, because the figures in IIUM has been working very hard to Islamize the knowledge, but the Islamization of knowledge. There are a few versions of Islamization of knowledge. Yeah? The first one is to Islamize whatever knowledge, including the Western ethnocentric knowledge. What we need to do is to modify, and this is what we call the accommodative modification methodologic approach 3. Meaning that we take the Western perspective, Western knowledge, and then we say that, we can use this because it's not against Islam, it is not in contradiction with Islam, but we need to modify. We need to modify a little bit on it. So we try to find a nas, Quran ka hadith ka, and then we try to say that, say for instance, in Islamic economics, they are saying that we have to work more in order to maximize the productivity, and we have to work hard for that. And then our brothers and sisters will try to find the nas in the Quran and also in the hadith, which ask us to work hard. You see, by doing that, we are actually justifying, the Western anthrocentric thinking. Western anthrocentric thinking by working hard without redefining the concept of working. So we call it Islamization of knowledge, because we Islamize, we accommodate that knowledge, the Western knowledge, we modify it by ayat Quran ke hadith, which probably we can term as ayatization. We try to ayatize, mengayatkan ini dan ini, and then we say, look, and then we use the conventional research methodology to do that, and then we come up with what we call, this is Islamic economic, Islamic sociology, Islamic halal. Yeah, is there any Islamic halal? I think we cannot put Islamic halal because halal is already Islamic, right? So everything is Islamic, but then within the framework, we do not destroy the concept, the framework of the Western ethnocentric thinking. So we develop the so-called Islamic things within that philosophy. I think that is wrong. That is incorrect. I think the late Professor Muhammad Kamal Hassan realized this very much, and also our distinguished Professor Syed Muhammad Najib. Both of them were saying, the first one, Professor Muhammad Kamal was saying that we are not going to Islamize the knowledge. We are going to Islamize the human knowledge, which is quite different, right? The human knowledge, our knowledge, we have to Islamize that. But then, in doing that, we are not integrating the Western with the Islamic knowledge. We want to develop it from within the framework of the Islamic tasawwur, Islamic worldview. From Islamic worldview, and then we establish it from within our own paradigms. And therefore, we have to redefine the concept by the Islamic concept. We at ISTEF very keen with that kind of thinking, meaning that we are using what we call a non-accommodative modification methodology approach. We want to bongkeh semua all the umbi, the roots of the tree, and then we want to plant a new tree which is called an Islamic tree, rather than modifying the existing trees. Yeah, potong the branches, and then hopefully that the fruits will come up, the Islamic fruits, which is impossible. That's why I think there are a lot of confusion in this. A lot of confusion is there. I can still remember, if I can share you a story. I was appointed by IIUM a long time ago to be the evaluator, to evaluate the research of the intellectuals in IIUM. And I came to know about a research which is very interesting, very good, very professional, which tried to develop a model of cooperation within the Muslim countries, the economic cooperations within the among the Muslim countries, which is good. But then when I interviewed the researchers, I asked them, I was saying to them that actually you are not contributing to Islam. You are contributing to capitalism, because the cooperation, the collaboration within the Muslim countries is based on the Eurocentric thinking of collaboration and cooperation, which is still assume resources are scarce. Human beings are having unlimited wants, and then you're using the capitalism as the platform to cooperation, for cooperation, and actually you are not contributing to Islam, but you are strengthening the ideas of Eurocentrism thinking. Kenapa? Sebab ya Islam kat situnya is only the Muslim countries, but the systems, the theories are still the Western Eurocentric thinking. I think that is very dangerous. So I think all of us need to probably we can share also. Yeah, I was appointed as external examiner of a thesis at IIUM, and the chairman was from one of the from political science. So I was saying, you are teaching Islamic political science. He said, no, I don't know about Islamic political systems. I only teach the conventional political systems. So I was surprised. To know, in IIUM, there are people who are not really know about the Islamic parts or the Islamic perspective of their disciplines, but instead they are teaching the conventional. That happens. And I remember that in one of our meetings, I asked, we were trying to help the establishment of the Malaysia Islamic University, and Professor Kamal was there. And I asked, let's discuss what are the problems that have been facing by the existing Islamic universities. Before we embark to establish a new Islamic university. And definitely we asked Professor Kamal Hassan, because he was the rector of the IIUM. So Professor Kamal also was saying, the problem is the bodies. Bodies mean the problems is the persons. As opposed to the earlier generations of IIUM who are very committed to Islam. yeah, who are very committed to Islam, who are very, they have the struggle, they have to, they have the intention to strive for Islam. But it's quite different from the later generation. That's what kita punya the elders lah, kita orang tua-tua observe, yeah. It's quite different because those who come to an Islamic university is not necessarily well versed with Islamic system within their own disciplines. I'm not too sure about the others, but this is probably the rare case of the a special case that I've met. And I think for the young intellectual at IAU and also in others, whenever you want to do Islam, inshallah, go from within the Islamic framework rather than from the Western Eurocentric framework. Right?
Thank you very much, Prof. It's a very good insight of yours. I think we have got to do lots more. Yes, what we can say that the internalization of Islamization by oneself is actually lacking. Yeah, Prof, as we see in ourselves, what more when we teach to others. So I think this part of ourselves that we need to improve.
Yeah, I can't remember, and you said I remember one thing. Yes, I was appointed as evaluator of a book from INHART. From
Subhanallah.
Yeah, from INHART. So one of the comments I can remember is that the author refer to Western writers. So we discuss about the literature review. So many of the, in fact, almost more than 90% are referred to Western writers and researchers. And then when they thought there is something to do with the Islamic management of halal, I can't really remember the exact topic of the book. But then the other thing is that whenever you discuss about the model, discuss the Western model and try to fill in the halal management process within that management or Western management model. That was, I think, one of the main questions that I asked from the author. Alhamdulillah, I see that the book has been published, alhamdulillah, and hopefully that with improvement on that. So I can imagine within your younger generation, you are still trapped within the Western ethnocentric thinking and also philosophies. So try to liberalize yourself, try to jadi merdeka lah, and come back to the roots of Islam, inshallah.
True, bro, true.
And that also halal is also quite dangerous, because when we talk about halal, we talk much on the profit, and halal is much more on commercialization process rather than the lifestyle. And then the Prophet ﷺ, and also if you can see during the Islamic resurgence in the 1980s, 1970s in Malaysia, and also in all over the world, when we talk about halal, we are more attached with the lifestyle rather than with the profit. So I can remember when we were studying abroad, whenever you enter a supermarket, you want to buy, say, for instance, jam, jam or whatever. You memorize the E code. E-code name kata E for spoon, and so it is lard and all that. You really memorize that. Why? It's not because of the profit. You want to build a lifestyle. You want to eat halal food, because halal will determine your heart. Yeah. Yes. Even I can still remember during 1980s, 1970s, our friends, when we want to eat at the stalls, and then makan mie or whatever, kway teow, they dare to ask the owner from which supplier do you take it? This meat is made by the Muslim or non-Muslim. If it is by non-Muslim, they don't take it. It is much more of lifestyle, which is, I think, quite different from what we're doing in halal now, in halal. And sometimes you had the expo, the halal expo. And then we go there. Sometimes we ask yang apa ni, yang jaga counter, you are producing halal food. Yeah, yes, this is all halal. Yeah. But you yourself are not halal.
Allah.
She was surprised. Hey, why? Because you don't cover yourself properly. You don't cover yourself properly. So how come you're talking about halal food, but not you yourself are not really halal? So at each step, we are more keen to discuss about halal lifestyle rather than halal commercialization or halal management within the Western ethnocentric thinking. Yeah. Right.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think this serves as a lesson. Very good insight, Prof. This is just the first episode, Prof. MashaAllah, we are looking much more to much more interesting discussions, fruitful advices. And Prof, just a little bit more, Prof, last but not least, we're going into Ramadan next week. Yeah. So we welcome, Prof, your reminders, advices to all of us. So to make this Ramadan a different
I'm so sorry, Dr. Nasuza. I don't know why. I've been frank and talking within this, hopefully the close discussion.
No problem, Prof. You are free, Prof. You are free. Don't worry. There is no limitations here, Prof. Don't worry, because we are academicians. We want to bridge all the ideas. Please, Prof, you are free to be yourself. No problem.
Okay.
Prof, any advices, Prof, for Ramadan next week? Last words from you?
Well, there are three categories of people who are fasting. Yeah, the first one is the normal people. They do not eat, do not drink, and do not be with their wife or with the husband. And Rasulullah was saying that what they get is only the hunger and also the thirsty. That is the lowest one. And we won't be really achieving the aims of Ramadan if we only fasting at that normal category. So puasa orang awam, the other one is puasa orang khusus. Khusus means that we are fasting, not only eating, not eating, not drinking, also not being with a wife or husband, but then also we are also protecting our eyes, our mouth, from all aspects that is not right for Islam, right? From Islam perspective. But then the highest is the khususul khusus. Khususul khusus is we are fasting, not only not eating, not drinking, not being with your husband and wife, and also try to jaga your mata, your mouth, all that. But then at the same time also it is a spiritual fasting. Yeah, your mazmumah, you are taking care of your mazmumah, the bad deeds, the bad attributes within ourselves. So actually, whenever we are fasting, we need not only to not eating, drinking, and being with wife and husband, but then apart from that, not only with protecting our eyes, our mouths from any bad attributes, but also our spiritual. We have to cleanse our spirituality within ourselves. It's quite difficult, but hopefully, then inshallah, Allah will guide us, inshallah, and will grant us with that kind of puasa, inshallah. Yeah.
Ameen. Ameen. Thank you very much, Prof. I thought that was coming to the end of our session for today, but mashallah, I can see at the chat box, Prof, one sister Az-Zahra, she would like to ask you one final question, if it's okay with you, Prof. Is it okay?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, no problem.
Okay, Sister Az-Zahra, you may unmute yourself and ask Prof your question.
Assalamualaikum, Prof. Truly sorry for standing the time. I was just thinking about my discussion with one of my colleagues, where talking about the fact that our system are fully, I could say, control, or our system of philosophy, politics, finance, are towards the Eurocentric or Western centric. So we discussed about the solution, and my colleague opined that there is no way to save the society unless we are having full Islamic system. And I say that is impossible because the fact that we are truly controlled. I mean, even Muslim ourselves, some of us are heavily agreed on some of the Western system, right? I'm talking about in general. And then, what do you think about that, Doctor? I mean,
yeah, thank you, sister. Thank you. You're right. We think that we have been controlled by whoever, yeah, by the systems, by the political system, the economic systems, and so forth. And we have the intention of trying to liberate ourselves, and then probably to really implementing Islamic injunctions, Islamic injunctions, inshallah. And it's good for you to think that. But then you seem to be quite ambitious to change the system, to change the people. It is quite ambitious. Actually, when we think like that, we are actually trying to do something beyond our power. Probably we need to change a little bit on that. We need to think that we need to do anything Islamic within our horizon of power. Our horizon of power. Yeah, definitely. If you are a wife, yeah, you have the power within your home, and then you have the children, the followers, and then you can do many Islamic things in your house, inshallah. And this is a contribution of Islam. So please do not think and try to do anything beyond the horizon of your power, whilst actually there are a lot of things that you can do within your horizon of power. Tengoklah, if you are a lecturer, yeah, there are a lot of things that you can do among your students. If you are a wife or a husband, there are a lot of things to do that. I can still remember, yeah. I'm sorry, being an elder, I like to talk about the previous experience. Yeah. I can still remember when Sabah fall into siapa nama dia, Pak Iring Katinggan, who is a Christian, and then the Muslim people in Sabah was trying to get back on religious basis. They were saying that now Christian is controlling us in Sabah. We need to take back so that the Muslim rules. So we came to Sabah. We were invited to Sabah, and we have a discussion. And they asked, "What is the strategy? Yeah, the political strategy to get back Sabah from the Christians, punya political figures?" So we asked them. If, for instance, you do a lot of sunat prayer, is Pak Iring Katinggan prohibit you to do that? They said, no, we can do as much as we can. So do you do that? No, we don't do that. So say, for instance, you establish a small business among your community. Is the government, the Christian government against that? They said, no. So do you do that? No, we do not do that. So actually, there are a lot of things that we can do, yeah, irrespective of what system, unless if there is a very strict prohibition of doing that, and that's quite different things. But then in general, for instance, in Malaysia, many people are saying that Malaysia is not a fully Islamic state, and therefore we cannot do Islamic we cannot do Islamic way of life. I think that is incorrect, because there are a lot of things Islamic that we can do, and the governments do not prohibit us, and in fact they like it if we have if we have a rational and also an interesting suggestion for them to do that. So the conclusion is that don't be too ambitious, to change what is beyond our horizon of power, while whatever that we have within our horizon of power, we are not using the opportunity to fulfill our intention of striving for Islam. So try to strive for Islam within our horizon of power. And in fact, if every one of us are doing that, inshallah, when we get together and collectively, and then we can see that there is a system, the Islamic system emerging from the grassroots level, from the bottom up level rather than top down level. And this is another thing. Sometimes there are people who are thinking to change to Islam by top-down process. But the process means that you have to change the government, you have to take over the power, the political power, and all that. Remember, that is not the only way that we can strive for Islam. We can strive for Islam from below, from below by using the bottom-up process at the grassroots level, inshallah. As long as we can adjust within ourselves. Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, Prof.
Oh yeah,
We could hear you.
Okay,
but
okay.
It seems that you are lost in the. Oh, okay. Now we can see you.
All right. Okay. I'm sorry for that. There's a problem with my computer. Okay. I think I answered the question, inshallah. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prof. Very insightful answer. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I think wherever we are, whoever we are, we have to start somewhere. Start today. Start now. Yeah. So we have finally come to the end of our first episode of INHART Monthly Book Talk Series 2023. We would really like to thank our honorable speaker, Prof. Dr. Muhammad Shukri Saleh, and all the audience for your participation. Hopefully the presentation or sharing here would benefit us all. May Allah grant us all with tawfiq and hidayah. Thank you for your time and attention. May we have a blessed Friday ahead on this 24th of Sha'ban, not forgetting an advance wish of happy Ramadan to everyone here. Hope to see you again next month, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Terima kasih, Prof. Yes, Prof. You may. See you next month, Prof. Inshallah. Doakan kami, Prof.
Inshallah. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.